Hello, my name is Elijah Wells, and this is the review of Joachim Trier's new movie, The Worst Person in the World. This movie by Joachim Trier, this is her third film of her Oslo trilogy, behind 2006's We Praise and 2011's Oslo 31st August. This movie, unfortunately, despite being titled Worst Person in the World, it's not about Boris Johnson, Vladimir Putin, someone dumb enough to privatize Channel 4, or Will Smith overreacting over his insecure wife. It's about a Norwegian woman who, in the long run, is having a full-on existential crisis episode. The movie is broken down into 12 chapters, almost like a Jean-Luc Godard movie from the 60s, as is broken chapters like as it explores her relationships, her doing drugs, her sexuality, and her reminiscing about the time that she's basically doing third wheel in her own life. Like, she's been a supporting role again in her own life. Like, she started off as a medical student, then wanted to do psychology, then ends up doing photography. Like, she doesn't know what she wants to do with her own life. It's almost like in the same vein as the movie from 2004, I think, Amélie, a French movie, which is basically in spirit, it's basically the same movie about a woman in a European country who doesn't know where she is mentally. She doesn't know who he is at that precise moment. The movie is again split into 12 chapters, which I'll go to tell what each chapters are in a very watered down sense. Like, the first one is basically she visits her boyfriend's family and is kind of scared of the fact of having children. The second chapter follows Julie crashing a reception and ruining everyone's party and cheating on one of the guests. The third one, she writes an article about having oral sex in the age of Me Too, and the article's spoken very well. The third chapter, it focuses largely on her visiting her family, and still contemplating about whether she wants to have kids or not. And in the fifth chapter, Juliet becomes, of course, very, very disillusioned, and out of fact, her boyfriend is a comic book artist who becomes very angry about the fact that his work is basically removing all sense of like any naughty adult edgy comedy or commentary it had. So she dreams about having a date with the man he met at a wedding she crashed. And in the sixth chapter, it's basically about the person she cheated. Person that she cheated on. She met at a wedding, finding out that his mother turns out to be Native American, so she becomes very conscious about climate change and very, very active in the political circles in Scandinavia, while being a yoga mom on Instagram. And the seventh chapter, she breaks up with his comic book boyfriend and moves in with the other boyfriend he met at that wedding. And at number eight, which is easily one of the weirdest one, she begins to trip on mushrooms after she, of course, her boyfriend suggested she should try some, which ended up her being naked and throwing her tampon towards a figurine while seeing the animated cat laugh at her due to vulgarity. Chapter 9, the comic book boyfriend comes again, but in a radio podcast while she watched it in a gym. He took offence at a journalist's questions, saying, "Oh, the comedy's just so rude, so vulgar, so misogynistic," while being like a commentary on like woke culture and when it's like too far. Like, I think reading like some comments like made on the comment. Yeah, it kind of reminded me a bit of Charlie Hebdo, since Europe has like a massive comic industry like Tintin and Asterix. Like, it's more Charlie Hebdo than Asterix, what I'm trying to say. And at number 10, finds out that comic book boyfriend has cancer, and Of course, she gets really sad about it, and of course, her new boyfriend finds out about the article she wrote and doesn't take his praise that seriously. And number 11, she finds out she is pregnant after all that time, and decides to keep the baby whilst also visiting her ex at the hospital. And at number 10, she reconciled with her cancer-sickened boyfriend. Again, this movie is like a tragedy comedy. Like, it's mostly at a very comedic part. The comedic parts really are potent, particularly at the opening, and the tragedy is very in your face when it comes to the finale. Like, I think my favorite one is definitely the number 12, where he basically at 11 and 12, like the last two, as the ex-boyfriend questions his mortality, reflects on his life choices, and also remembering the more physical content of times, like always liking to go into DVD stores, always buying comic books, and he just feels like he just wasted it all. My least favorite chapter is probably chapter 2, just because the comedy was just too crude and too vulgar in my liking. It was just full of peeing jokes and poop jokes and fart jokes, and also this really uncomfortable joke where she has this conspiracy theory that if you hug your baby too much, they'll become a delinquent. The writing in this movie is gorgeous, particularly by Johann Trier, who she does a really excellent job at writing. Who also, as I just remembered now, also directed a few years back the supernatural thriller movie Thelma. And as well, the music is pretty good, particularly in the first chapters where it's very synth heavy, and the cinematography and where the whole world just completely stands still, and she begins to date the other guy. It almost reminds me of something like The Girl Who Left Through Time by Mamoru Hosoda, as time literally freezes and it's just the two characters just interacting with one another like nothing happened. Like, it's definitely a very gorgeous scene. I just wonder how they like pulled it off. Like, given the budget, it's almost like €5 million or $5.6 million if you do your exchange rate. Again, I've sung a lot of praise on the worst person in the world. I think the humor is not for everyone, but I like some qualities of its humor. I think the humor is a little bit too crass, a bit too much for me, particularly in the second chapter where it just is jokes about bodily fluids, and particularly one thing that kind of crossed the line for me is when she was tripping on magic mushrooms and throws a bloody tampon onto that man, and again she begins to hallucinate while she's completely naked, which is, I feel like it's just a bit too much of a mouthful for me. Like, this movie is great, but it's not a film for exactly everyone, because Europeans do like to shock people sometimes. The movie The Worst Person in the World is a great movie, even though vulgar at times. It's a movie about one woman's existential crisis and knowing her own place in the world and constantly questioning her life decisions in this tragedy of a comedy, with some great acting of Renata Rizali, who is great in this movie, and as well as Andres Damasli and Herbert Nordrum, who are also brilliant in this movie, both with some gorgeous cinematography, great writing, and some brilliant direction by Johann Trier. I'm feeling an 8 out of 10 for The Worst Person in the World. Have you seen The Worst Person in the World? Let me know in the comments what you thought about this movie and what you thought about the review. And also, subscribe to my channel, like this video, follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and this is Elijah Wells, and bye!